In this week's episode of Naruto Shippuden, the Itachi Shinden backstory continues as we learn the dark and tumultuous past of Itachi Uchiha. This week's episode is going to seem very familiar to fans of Naruto, especially those who have been following the series for a long time. There are a lot of beats that are repeated in this week's episode. Obito coming to town, the Nine Tails attack, everybody being devastated by this, the Uchiha clan being segregated and removed and put in their own brand new part of Konoha Village so that they can be monitored. It's all here, it's all the same, but there are some new elements to this episode, all of which involve the young character of Itachi Uchiha, getting to see him go to the academy and eventually graduating by the end of this week's episode. This week's episode also had some action scenes which were surprisingly well animated. We also got to see a younger version of Shisui Uchiha, a character who ends up being very instrumental in Itachi's future. Now, before I go any further, I just want to highlight this one major mistake that they made in last week's episode and that they continued to make in this week's episode. And it's a mistake which, honestly, I didn't even notice until one of my commenters brought it up. At the end of last week's episode and in the beginning of this week's episode, Obito Uchiha comes to town and he gets ready to unleash the nine-tailed fox on the Konoha village. And they have this great big shot of the Hokage monument. The problem is, Tsunade's face is there. That doesn't make sense at all, timeline-wise, and I could have excused it in last week's episode, but for them to not go back and try to fix that, or at least cut that scene entirely, they could have just shown Obito's face and that would have been fine. But no, we got two mistakes, 2 weeks in a row. That being said, there were some interesting developments in this episode. During the Nine Tails attack, you get to see that Itachi was saving that one female member from his clan, as well as his younger brother Sasuke, and Sasuke as a baby is so stupidly cute, and it's almost hilarious to see him in that state considering what a brooding character he is. But as a baby, he's just so jolly and chubby and lovable. The best thing about this episode is getting to see Itachi actually go to the academy. In the past before, we've learned that he actually graduated at a very young age, and by the end of this week's episode, he immediately graduates, he gets his headband, and he gets ready to start his three-man team. But he has a little bit of trouble getting there at first, because despite the fact that he is really gifted, he's also not exactly the most sociable of ninja. He doesn't really get along with too many people, but the ladies certainly love him because of his badass ninja skills. But at first he seems to make some enemies with this one ninja and his group of cronies. These three ninja kids suck so freaking bad, but they have some hilarious facial expressions, and try as they might to try and best Itachi, they just can't do it. And they actually end up running into this one other ninja who's this big bully who ends up getting right in their face, and Itachi has no choice but to actually end up saving them. And this all ends at the end of the episode when they have this big old street brawl where basically what I think is really cool is that Itachi is actually using a shadow clone to actually skip class. He's making his clone go to the academy while he trains with his good friend Shisui, who just sort of appears out of nowhere in this episode. I would have liked a more proper introduction to the character, but then again, I also like the fact that they're getting right through this. We keep moving ahead, forward and forward and forward, and it looks like the next episode is where things are going to be a little more interesting. I mean, if you ever wanted to see Itachi with cat ears, the next episode is going to be the one for you. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of Naruto Shippuden? This one felt very familiar, and that's just because we got to see a lot of story beats that we've seen before from the series. The Nine Tails attack, the Uchiha segregation, but they get through it all real quick, which I'm really glad they did. They could have spent half the episode on just the frickin' Nine Tails attacking the village, and they didn't. They got right through it, and they got right back to the Itachi stuff. All the scenes with him and his younger brother Sasuke are also just really enduring, getting to see them interact in a much more loving family environment, something that we never really got to see too much of before. Not to mention that one young girl who I actually just thought was just another random ninja from the village. No, she's actually a member of the Uchiha clan, which of course is going to make her backstory all the more tragic because eventually Itachi's going to end up killing her. I also have to admit I really loved the subplot where Itachi ended up being like like the savior of those 3 loser ninjas who were getting bullied by that one big guy, because at first they absolutely hated him, and then after that they actually ended up just being his own entourage, which Itachi really wasn't all that fond of, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that he himself is still incredibly conflicted. He likes the fact that he has very strong ninja abilities, but he doesn't know exactly what he's using them for. The concept of life and death is still very strange to him, and he's trying to come to grips with that, and you get to see that with all of the scenes with Shisui Uchiha in this episode. And really, that's just about it. If you wanted to learn a little bit more about the backstory of Itachi Uchiha, then this is definitely an episode to check out. Not the most exciting episode, but it certainly had its moments, like that one moment where he was going up against the bully, and he seemingly punched Itachi in the face, and man, what a painful looking punch that was, except that it ended up just being a shadow clone. The next episode, I think, is where things are going to get more interesting as we finally get to see him with his 3-man team. We'll get to see who his sensei is going to be. It looks like they're going to have like a cat theme because they're all wearing these cat ears. I'm not really sure what the deal is with that, but it looks like Itachi's actually enjoying himself being a part of the team in the preview, so I can't wait to see what they're going to do with that. That being said, this wasn't exactly an awful episode, and it's better than any of the Infinite Tsukiyomi filler that I've seen, so let's just continue to take it for what it is, as just some Itachi backstory adding to the mythos of the Naruto universe. There were some moments where the animation and artwork looked bad, and there were moments where it looked really good and fluid, like that final action scene with Itachi fighting against those group of bullies. So, pretty decent episode. Check it out, Naruto fans. But if you guys did watch this week's episode of Naruto Shippuden, make sure to tell me what you thought about it in the comment section below. Did you have a favorite scene from this week's episode? What do you want to see from the rest of the Itachi Shinden backstory? Make sure to tell me in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching this review. Make sure to like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby.